On November 11, 1931, one of the last of the old Santa Rosa County Confederate soldiers passed away at 1018 North Gallimard Street in Pensacola. A honored resident of Bagdad, Florida, he would be returned to his former community for burial amongst his wife and family. William Henry Metcalf's journey to Bagdad had begun upon his birth on June 22, 1844 in the small community of Echo, in Dale County, Alabama, the son of Henry J. Metcalf and Nancy Judah. By 1848, according to Lydia Hughes Grimes, his father was powerfully converted and joined the Methodist Episcopal Church South. Within a year of Henry's conversion, he felt called to preach, but, like most clergy in his day, he continued to farm. After all, the family still had to eat, and the pay for a lay preacher was little or non-existent. He was licensed to exhort, which was a lay person who read scripture lessons in order to make a practical application of their truths to the public congregation. Their service was confined to singing, preaching, and public exhortation. Each license had to be renewed annually. On April 21, 1849, after a trial run, he was given a license to exhort in Columbia, in Henry County, Alabama. In 1853, Henry was licensed to preach, and for the next few years he acted as supply preacher on several circuits. By 1872, he had become an ordained elder in Eufaula, Alabama, the highest lay preacher status there was. In the meantime, the clouds of civil war had gathered over our nation and would finally burst at Fort Sumter in 1861. However, William did not enlist until June 1864, when he joined Captain Jeter's company of the Alabama Home Guard in Skipperville in Dale County, Alabama. Skipperville's claim to fame was that it was used as a local Confederate recruiting station during the war. As for the Home Guard, this was a very loosely organized militia under the command of the Confederate Army. Among their many functions was to defend the home front, apprehend deserters, keep the peace, and were considered the last defense against any Union forces. For the most part, the Guard was made up of those exempted from front-line service due to health, age, infirmities, or skilled in a valued industry. In this capacity, William's duties were light compared to the Atlanta campaign to the northeast, where thousands of soldiers were meeting their fate. After losing Atlanta to Union General William T. Sherman, the Confederate Army headed for Franklin and Nashville, Tennessee, and the disaster that awaited them there. William's own battle occurred in March 1865, a month before the war ended, in the town of Newton, located 17 miles from Skipperville. There, a pitched battle broke out between the Home Guard unit and a group of 50 Union irregulars and deserters determined to loot and rob the local citizens. The Confederates were able to soundly repulse the Union invaders with great fervor. A historical marker stands today on the battle site. 1 month later, Private William Henry Metcalf surrendered Newton in April 1865. However, even though the war was now over, the citizens of Dale County were still in danger from roving bands of deserters from both armies. 3 months after the war, a pitched battle was fought on the courthouse grounds against a stray unit of Union soldiers trying to burn the courthouse. The lack of effective communication within the Union Army was the main contributing factor to this fight. 4 months afterwards, the Home Guard was kept busy from the deserters who were breaking into local homes and robbing the elderly and widows of Confederate soldiers, or whose husbands had not yet returned home from the war. When hostilities finally ended, William returned to his parents' devastated farm to help plant their crops and hope for the best. On November 24, 1870, he would marry Susan or Susie Adams in the town of Antioch in Stewart County, Georgia. William's father was born in Stewart County, where Susan's parents were local farmers, Samuel Bastian Adams, and Holland Arrington Vause. Originally from Talbot County, Georgia, Samuel was considered a well-to-do early settler of Stewart County, but most of that would change due to the Civil War. At the age of 55, her father was a member of the Confederate Home Guard attached to the 801st Georgia State Militia. He would pass away in 1864 and was buried in the Samuel Adams Cemetery in the community of Lumpkin in Stewart County. Once a thickly populated community, it has since been abandoned and the cemetery has become almost inaccessible. The cemetery was once enclosed by a stone wall with an iron gate with 27 tombstones, but all but 3 have disappeared. As for William and Susan, little would change in their lives, as he supported his family as a farmer while by 1880 Susan had given birth to 5 children. The family remained in Antioch, but by 1885 they had relocated to Bagdad, Florida, where William earned a living in labor. By 1900, he had become a boom foreman at the lumber mill. 10 years later, his age began to catch up to him, but he still had to work odd jobs to make ends meet. In 1920, things hadn't changed much, but in 1928 he lost Susan to the Pale Nations and buried her in the Bagdad cemetery. The year of her death on her tombstone is incorrect on both Susan and William's. With Susan now gone and with his advancing age, William moved in with his grandson William T. Martin. Before long, he moved to 1018 North Gallimard Street to live with his daughter Cora Lee and her husband Martin Villar Mitchel, an engineer at the water plant. There, he would pass away on November 11, 1931, and was carried to Bagdad Cemetery to rest next to Susan.